are going to do a skit for you. Wait, I'm getting the registration bucket. Do we have the registration bucket yet?
Isabel, come to me. Come. No?
Tim, our youth director, raise your hand. Our youth director, if I call your name, go see him and he will help you pick out an Easter basket that's out. You know where they are, right, Tim?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, the first person is Emily Orlando. Actually, Christine Orlando. Where is Christine Orlando? Woo! If you can see Tim, our youth director, he has a prize. And Tim, they can pick out which one they want.
Woo.
All right, our second drawing is going to go to... What? Child. Oh, yeah, Tiara. Tiara Green. Dorina. Tiara, you can go get it. She knows. All right. Go find Timmy. Put those so we can. Okay, now this is Miss Julie. I want you guys to be respectful, and you're going to listen to a story, and as soon as we listen to the story, then the preschoolers are going to go on the first hunt.
Okay. Guys, I'm going to tell you a story for Easter, and it's about 3 trees. And I need all the preschoolers to be quiet and listen so the kids can act out the story. Ready? This is the story of the 3 trees. Once upon a time, on a high mountaintop, 3 little trees stood and dreamed of what they wanted to become when they grew up. The first tree looked up at the stars twinkling like diamonds above him. I want to hold a great treasure and be covered with gold and filled with precious stones. I will be the most beautiful treasure in the whole world. The second little tree looked out at the small stream trickling by. I want to be a strong sailing ship. I will be the strongest ship in the world. The third little tree looked down into the valley below. I don't ever want to leave this mountaintop. I want to grow so tall that when people stop to look at me, they will raise their eyes to heaven and think of God. Years passed. The rains came and the little trees grew tall. One day, a woodcutter climbed the mountain. He looked at the first tree and said, "This tree is beautiful." And with a swoop of his shining axe, the first tree fell. The woodcutter looked at the second tree. "This tree is strong," and with a swoop of his shining axe, the second tree fell. The third tree felt her heart sink when the woodcutter came over. She stood straight and tall and pointed bravely to heaven. But the woodcutter never even looked up, and with a swoop of his shining axe, the tree fell. The first tree was made into a simple feed box for animals. The second tree was hammered and sawed into a fishing boat and taken to a small lake. The third tree was dragged into a lumber yard and thrown into a pile of wood. Many years passed, but one night starlight poured into a stable. Starlight poured into a stable where the manger was being used. A young woman had just given birth to a baby boy, and she was looking for a place to lay him. The young woman's husband said, "This manger is beautiful." And he laid the baby in the manger. And at that moment, the first tree knew that he was holding the greatest treasure in the whole world. Late one night, a friend crowded into an old fishing boat. They quickly fell asleep as the second tree quietly sailed away. But a squall, a bad storm arose on the lake, and the second tree feared he would not be strong enough to carry his people. But a young man stood in their midst and commanded the storm to be silent. The storm was stilled, and at that moment the second tree knew he was carrying the King of heaven and earth. One Friday morning, the third tree was startled when it was yanked from the woodpile. It was hastily made into a cross and put on the shoulders of a man who was forced to carry the cross to a mountaintop. A storm and the terror of God descended on the mountain in the form of an earthquake. The tree was filled with shame. But 2 days later, on a Sunday morning, the man who was crucified was resurrected and came back to life. In that moment, God had redeemed all that had gone so terribly wrong in the past. To include the dreams of the 3 trees, He made the first tree beautiful again. He made the second tree strong. And every time people thought of the third tree, their eyes raised to heaven and they thought of God. And that is the story of the 3 trees. Thank you, Bob.